So today I have Matt Kaplan from Housemasters here, and we're going to go over a little bit about some of the things that you have to be mindful of when buying a house. And there's a lot of pitfalls. When purchasing a home, you never really know what you're getting. So having a professional look over the property for you is invaluable. And there's some other resources that Matt today is going to share with you that I think also will be very valuable for you when considering buying a house. So tell us a little bit about what you do. Did you get started in this business? First and foremost, I'd really like to know.
Yeah, so back in the 1990s,
Okay.
way back, my father and I purchased a franchise. So I'm part of a national brand. So we started in Suffolk County, and we employ inspectors and engineers, that service the whole region. And, most of our business comes from the real estate community. So you have realtors, mortgage people like yourself,
Yep.
Attorneys, and obviously our previous clients. And it's been rewarding. We love to help people, but most people out there don't know what a real home inspection is. It's pretty much a evaluation of what's visible at the time of the inspection. And you always want to have a client who's buying the property attend to learn. It's a complete education. So if you're learning about the property, you're more likely to purchase it because you'll know how to take care of things, because you want to have a good inspector that shows you how to maintain the house. Because some buyers out there think if you find one problem, they don't want the house. And in today's market, forget it. You have to really, you should really not be nitpicking anything because there's no inventory, as
Right.
we know what's going on. So we start on the outside. So that's where you start with an inspection. So the driveway, the sidewalk is actually part of the inspection too, because the homeowner is responsible for cracks in the sidewalk, trip hazards, things like that. So they'll check the roof, they'll bring a ladder. Sometimes it's too steep. We may have to use a drone. Sometimes it's raining. You can't walk on a roof. And, clients are like, why can't you walk on the roof? Well, it's very dangerous. You could fall off the roof, okay? So the siding, the chimney, any patio, retaining wall, so everything outside. And the drainage outside is very important. Water penetration is probably the biggest problem on a home inspection that you have to be aware of.
People are not pitching their
Slope
beds.
of the property, the
Right.
drainage, exactly. Sometimes people put planter boxes right at the side of the house, and that could be a big disruption of water coming in.
I'm going to cut you off because it's funny. I was up in Ithaca with my wife, and I was completely blown away. None of the houses. I mean, it's a very charming community, but none of the houses have any gutters. And when you look at these houses, they're all weathered, and you can just see they're all water damage. They have no gutters, and I was blown away by the fact that they didn't have them.
Well, usually when you see houses that don't have gutters, it's just they have poor drainage everywhere, so they don't even know where to bring it,
Right.
even if they have dry wells. So sometimes you have gutters and downspouts that terminate into the ground, and it goes to a dry well to take the water away from the foundation. And then sometimes you have window well problems. If you ever look at the side of the grading and you see the window well really low at the ground level and you have a big rainstorm, unfortunately, that water is going to go right into the basement window.
Right.
So sometimes if you have like 4 or 5 windows, you may have 1 or 2 that are compromised. You may want to fill it in with cement. You don't need it. So that would solve your water problem right there.
Right.
So that is the drainage part of it. And then they go inside. Typically, inspectors will start top to bottom. Run
Attic.
the water, attic, run the water, check water pressure. So by the time they get to the basement or crawl space, they can see potential concerns.
Right.
And again, age is a factor on items, not a defect. And most inspectors will see like a 15-year-old water heater and they're going to say, oh, you know what, you need a new one, without even looking at the condition of it. So would it be a good idea to replace it? Of course, but at 15 you don't need to unless you have some type of corrosion on the water heater or it's installed improperly at 15 years old.
So you're giving like life expectancy on roof.
Approximately.
And
You can't be perfect. There are some design life ranges that we can get through some applications, some websites that offer that to the inspectors out there. Mm-hmm. So we can put in the serial number and you get, boom, right there. You can figure out how old the item is.
Right. So there's a lot of bases that you're covering when you're doing your home inspection. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit because I think that a lot of people feel that you are a deal killer, right? Because if a home inspector is too thorough,
Yes.
you could potentially scare a buyer and therefore kill a deal. So are you a deal killer?
No, no. So that's funny, John. But yes, we've heard it before. Some inspectors, when they refer to some realtors refer to deal killers when they give cost estimates, and you really don't want to have your inspector throwing out numbers because we're not contractors.
Right.
So if we see a roof that is aged, curling, and a sign of leakage into the attic, we just say, look, you need a roofer in here to give you an estimate. We don't say the roof is shot and you're looking at $20,000. That's a deal killer.
Right.
All right. So that's the difference. What we would do is just try to say, look, you need about 2 or 3 roofers to come in and give you an estimate of what the costs are. Maybe there's a section that can be saved. We don't know, but that's the specialist that has to do that.
Mm-hmm. So another piece of I guess our relationship is with renovation lending.
Yes.
Right. That is a huge opportunity for people who do not have the resources for down payment plus the renovation. So we're able to finance those home improvements into the loan. So can you talk a little bit about that process and what's involved there?
Sure. So we've been doing the HUD consulting for about 7, 8 years now. And it's rewarding because these types of clients are very excited. They get to spend this money on what they want and make the house
Their own.
Their own, exactly. So there's all different types of renovation products, which I'm excited about. So you never know. When you call me, I have no idea what type of product it is, but it's all the same. And the consultant would go visit the property. That's the initial visit to see what's going on with any HUD requirements, health and safety type of things that we would put in a report and let the customer know this is required. And then you can also have your wish list,
right?
Depending on how high they can go with the money,
right? So it's a needs list and a wish list, right?
Right, but always health and safety
first.
And health and safety would mean, detectors on a house, trip hazards, holes in sheetrock, water penetration, termite infestation, possible asbestos, things like that. So these are the requirements. And then their wish list, they want to redo the bathroom, the kitchen, bring everything up to code, that kind of thing.
Right. So really there are 2 main renovation type loans. You have Home Style, which is the Fannie Mae version. You also have 203K, which is the FHA version of that. Is there any differences in terms of what the requirements are in terms of the needs list that the program is asking for?
It's all the same, but as long as you get the HUD requirements in there, the consultant, like I said, on the initial visit, we break everything down with the contractor's estimate. And then depending on what type of product it is, we would, after they close, we visit the property a certain amount of visits. And that's how the contractor gets paid.
Gets paid, right.
Because it's very difficult in this industry to find contractors that are willing to wait for their money. Mm-hmm. And I know some products, they get 50% of their material cost.
Up front, yeah.
But some of them just don't want to wait around for their money.
Right.
The town holds things up, and then they have issues.
So the renovation loans, I think, are a great opportunity, but there's a lot of steps that go into it. Obviously, identifying a contractor is extremely important. We have to vet them out. We have to make sure that they're licensed, insured, that they're able to do the scope of the work that they're suggesting that they can do. Usually references are required. Their financials need to be in order too. I know that our company requires that they have a certain amount of credit availability to get that project going, as you alluded to before, because they are typically using their funds to start the project and then getting reimbursed.
Right.
So we do try to steer people away from using contractors that are not familiar with the banks, because I think that it makes the process that much easier when you do work with somebody that has experience working with banks. So what would you say as far as like the process goes? So let's say they speak to me, we go through the renovation piece, and that's something that a client wants to do. I pass on your information.
So we're talking about a purchase now, right?
A purchase, yes. So they identify a home that needs some TLC. They have probably reached out to a contractor already, just to kind of give them an idea of what that project would look like, and then they reach out to you.
So after the offer is accepted, they do their home inspection. So they're going to get their home inspection so they know what's happening. Sometimes they skip the home inspection. But when they sign a contract, that's when we step in. You have to make sure that they have a contract signed. So because they're paying the HUD consultant for the initial visit, which is a
Up front.
government rate up front, because deals die a lot. So we go in there and we do this initial visit after they sign the contract, and then it's like I would say about an hour. That's what a HUD consultant. A home inspection is typically 2 to 2.5 hours. You know, so I mean we do both.
Now, the HUD consultant is meeting with the contractor as well.
Sometimes it happens. Sometimes
Is that preferred?
It is preferred if we can get the contractor there at the same time, because the contractor only hears from the customer, look, I want this and I want that. I'm like, well, yeah, but you have a chimney that's pulling away from the house and that needs to be done.
Addressed, right.
Right? So there may be a structural problem where they have an underpinning and you have to redo the foundation and the customer's not aware of that. So that's why we do the HUD consulting, just to that initial visit you have to know and make sure you have the health and safety gets in there. But if the contractor's attending, it's a good idea. It moves it along a little bit more quickly. But what we try to do is, if they're not attending, we get our report, we send it to the customer immediately, and then we get the contractor's name, and we let them know what is needed. Because some of them, like I said, they don't have any clue with paperwork. And that's the biggest thing, the paperwork in this business.
And again, and that goes back to having an experienced contractor that has familiarity working with banks, because they have experienced this before. If you're working with a contractor that maybe is just on the smaller side, that is not only doing the operational piece of it, but also doing the actual work, it's going to be very difficult for them to produce that documentation. And again, it's just to keep things moving in an expedited way. To have a company that has the resources will make the transaction a completely different experience. 100%. So what would you say differentiates housemasters from other inspectors?
It's a good question. We offer a lot of service. So when we're doing a home inspection, not only are we not requiring, but I would say really wanting the customer to be there to learn. And when they get the report, there's a whole set of things that we give them an attachment for the termite inspection, give them a 1-year protection plan for that's included. In the report, there's a repairless generator. So let's say they have a couple of windows that are broken and they don't have time to call in contractors. They can click on the item and it gives them an insurance quote on those 2 windows that are broken. By zip code, it prices it out. So it's very accurate. But it's not coming from the inspector, it's coming from an insurance company, which is nice. So we have that. And then we also set up the utilities. So when they get a closing date, the customer doesn't have to sit on the phone with the gas company, the water company, electric, and cable. And then they get national discounts because we're national for over 40 years. They get discounts from Home Depot, Sherwin-Williams Paint, different national brands. So it helps them as they're moving in, paint a couple of rooms, save a little bit of money, and that's what it's about. That's trying to give back a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wasn't aware of that. That's great.
And we also offer a 4-month home repair guarantee on anything that we rate satisfactory. So if there's something like, we had something about 8 months ago, a water heater, brand new water heater, a valve started to leak, I had to send a plumber out to fix it. It's not that we did anything wrong, but it's something that we're standing behind our findings.
Love it.
So we have stuff like that.
Right, which is again, which I was saying.
It's a premium service.
Right, and that's what I said to when we started out. I respect your approach to working with people and standing by your word, and you practice business the right way.
And one other thing that most real estate professionals don't know, in home inspections, there's no insurance requirement. You only need general liability insurance, which protects the house in case like an inspector falls through the attic floor, which happens. I've had 1 or 2 over my 29 years. But most inspectors have this general liability because it's a requirement, but it's inexpensive. But errors and omissions is the insurance that real estate companies have. And that's error or omission. If you omit something from the report, that protects the customer moving in. If, God forbid, the house sinks to the ground, which doesn't happen on an everyday basis, but if it did, you have an insurance company just in case.
Right.
That's for those big possibilities. So that's why real estate professionals should be referring companies that have errors and omissions insurance.
Right. So the typical you said inspection would be about an hour, you say?
No, a home inspection is 2 to 2.5 hours.
2 to 2.5
Larger
hours.
homes could be 3 to 3.5, 4.
Wow.
Once you get into 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home, that could be 3+ hours easy.
And the general price I mean,
Well, pricing for home inspectors depends on, usually you go by experience. So I would say I've seen them as low as 450. I've seen them as high as 850, because you could have some engineers out there, which I do have on staff, but some engineers out there charge enormous amounts. They'll charge by the price of the house.
right.
And sometimes you have ancillary services, which we didn't talk about.
Yeah. So yeah.
Pool inspections, cesspool inspections, as you know.
So what do you do? So let's talk about pool for a second. So what do you do during a pool inspection if it's off season and it's closed? How do you,
Good question,
how do you
because
do it?
we always get that question. Can you check the pool for me? I said, well, it's kind of impossible because the water's not running. The pool cover's on top,
Right.
so you can't check that. Same thing in the wintertime. You can't check central air. You need 3 consecutive days of 60 degrees or higher to check the central air system. All right, and sometimes in the summer, like right now when you're getting 90 degrees, you can't check the boiler. So
This is the stuff I want to know.
Yeah,
this is the stuff people want to know.
there you go.
And what about like under the ground oil tanks? That's always something that comes up that I see.
Buried oil tanks in Nassau County. There's a phone number. This is the health department, so you can always find out about buried tanks at 516-227-9691. I kind of memorize that number. So that's the Nassau County
impressive.
Health Department. And there's no law right now, so you can still leave it in place.
Right.
But it's recommended. Every inspector will say to pump out the oil underground, cut the line, and put a tank above ground or convert to gas if gas is available.
It was great. The information that you provided, I think, would be extremely helpful for a lot of buyers. So I thank you for your time today.
Sure.
How would somebody reach out to you?
Well, you can call our 800 number, 800-805-1122. You can email me at mkaplan, Kaplan, at housemaster.com, or just Google me. You'll find it. I mean, through social media, you can find anything today.
Master of Home Inspections, Matt Kaplan. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate it.